right? So I'm just going to go ahead and add this, add the 7 to the other side. So I've got x squared minus 8x plus some number equals 7. Well, the number that goes on that line, half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So I've got x minus 4 squared equals 23. And then square root both sides. So I got x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 23. Add 4, and x is going to equal 4 plus or minus the square root of 23. Okay, so there's the first one. It looks like almost everybody that put in an answer got that correct. Good job. So the second one, pretty much the same thing, right? Add 51 gives me x squared minus 14x plus some number equals 51. Well, half of 14 is 7. 7 squared is 49. So I'm going to add 49 to both sides. So that gives me x minus 7 squared equals 100. Square root both sides. X minus 7 is going to equal 10 or negative 10. So add 7, and x is going to equal 17 or negative 3. And then number 3, I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. So I should get 5x squared minus 50x plus some number equals negative 16. And then I'm going to factor 5 out of this side. So 5x squared minus 10x plus some number equals negative 16. So half of 10 is 5. Half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. And 25 times 5 is 125. So what I'm actually adding to both sides is 125, this amount, right? So then it becomes, let's see, what do I get? 5 times x minus 5 squared equals 109. Thanks. 109. I'm like, I can't figure it out right now. Divide by 5. So x minus 5 squared equals 109 divided by, oh, that is not a 9. Wow. Okay. Let's try that again. 109 divided by 5. So then I'm going to square root it. And I've got x minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 109 divided by 5. Add 5 to both sides. So x is going to equal 5 plus or minus the square root 109 divided by 5. Okay? Whew, beautiful. Any questions? Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go on today. So what we're doing today is we're talking about the quadratic formula. Yay! Love the quadratic formula. So how do you solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula? Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple different properties. We've already solved, have we done this yet? The zero product property, right? When you factor, yeah, we've done this. When you factor, right, if two things are multiplied together and it equals 0, then one of those things has to be 0. We've talked about that. The square root property, which we did, I don't know how many days ago, sorry, when we first started quadratics, basically says if I have a squared equals b, then a equals plus or minus the square root of b. And then I have it a little example for you. And then we get to what we're learning today, and that's the quadratic formula. And if you're having issues remembering the quadratic formula, go to YouTube and you can, they have songs in any genre that you want, basically, to memorize it to, but basically it says x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you can learn it to a song. If you go to YouTube, you just search quadratic formula songs. Make sure you put songs after it, or else you'll just get a whole bunch of math stuff that'll pop up. But if you put songs after it, it'll have songs that you can memorize it to music to. So you'll learn the quadratic formula. You can solve any quadratic using the quadratic formula. It doesn't matter. You don't have to know any of the other ways. You can just do the quadratic formula. That's it. Okay? The trick with the quadratic formula is everything has to be on the same side of the equal sign. Okay? So everything has to be, I have to put everything on the same side of the equal sign before I start. I pick out A, B, and C. A is the number with x squared, B is the number with x, and C is the number with no variable. And then I plug it in and do order of operations, and that's it. Okay? So there may be other ways we can solve some of these next, 12 problems, I think it is. But we're just going to solve them all using the quadratic formula so you see how it is. Okay, is there any questions on that? Anybody? Okay, beautiful. So here we go. So we have 12 problems to do. I'm going to start with this one. Whew, beautiful. So I have to get everything, I'm trying to get it so everyone can see. There we go. So I want to get everything on the same side, the equal sign. So I'm going to subtract 10x squared and add 7. Add 7. So then I get x squared plus 4x minus 45. I think that's it. Equals 0. Now, technically, I could factor that, but we're not trying to learn how to factor today. We already know how to do that. We're going to use the quadratic formula. And so I'm going to identify A, B, and C. So A is going to equal 1, B is going to equal 4, and C is going to equal negative 45. So it's the numbers here, here, and here. Okay? Is there any questions on how I found those numbers? Everyone's okay? All right, so here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug it into the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula says, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Quadratic formula says x is going to equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So here I go. X is going to equal minus b, so minus 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 45, all divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Now I'm going to do order of operations, which says parentheses first. So a square root kind of acts as a parenthesis or a grouping symbol. So I'm going to do everything inside the square root. So I've got negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 4 times 45, 90, 180. 180 divided by 2. Which is going to equal 4 plus or minus the square root of 196 divided by 20. I don't know where I got 20 from. Where did I get 20 from, you guys? Should be 2. Wow. 2 times 1 is now 20. My math is doing really well today. Okay. So then I've got negative 4 plus or minus the 14 all divided by 2 because the square root of 196 is 14. So then I've got 4. I'm not going to write that there. I'm going to write it down here a little bit. So then I've got 2 different equations. I've got negative 4 plus 14 divided by 2. And I've got negative 4 minus 14 divided by 2. Okay? So negative 4 plus 14 is 10 divided by 2 is 5. And negative 14 minus 14 is negative 18 divided by 2 should be negative 9. So there's my answers, 5 and negative 9. Questions? Okay, so now I'm going to go to my next equation, which is number 2, and we're still using the quadratic formula, so I kind of keep that on the screen here a little bit. So I've got, I'm going to rewrite this so it does have an x in there. So I've got x squared plus 0x minus 16 equals 0. So I've got my coefficients, which are going to be here, here, and here. Okay, so A is going to equal 1, B is going to equal 0, and C is going to equal negative 16. Okay, any questions? We're okay? All right, now I'm just going to plug it into the quadratic formula. So I've got x is going to equal minus 0, plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 16, all divided by 2 times 1. So let's see, what do I get? Negative 0 is just 0. Okay, so plus or minus the square root of 0 squared is 0. Let's see, 4 times 16. 64? 64. 64, all divided by 2. So, great. So that gives me plus or minus 8 divided by 2. So that should equal plus or minus 4. Done. Questions? That one's a lot easier because B is 0, and when B is 0, it's a lot easier. Okay? So the third one, here we go. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to keep the quadratic formula on there. If you need me to, I'll rewrite it though. So it's x equals minus b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So everything's on the same side, the equal sign. My coefficients are here, here, and here. So a equals 2, b equals negative 3, and c equals 1. So I get, what do I get? X equals minus a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 1 all over 2 times 2. So that's going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 8 all divided by 4, which is going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of 1 divided by 4. And that's going to give me 3 plus or minus 1 divided by 4. So that gives me 3 plus 1 divided by 4 and 3 minus 1 divided by 4. So my answer should be 3 plus 1 is 4 divided by 4 is 1. And 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. There's my answers. Questions? Okay, so we're going to see how you guys do now. So here's A, B, and C. Let's put these up there. I think I can get 6 of them up there at a time. So let's go ahead and put those up there. For A, my answers are 0 and 6. Everyone okay with that one? I should say X equals. And then for B, my answers are X equals negative 7 and positive 1. We okay there? All right, for C, my answers are X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 37 divided by 2. Okay? All right. And for D, my answer is, what is my answer? X equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 30 divided by 6. So on that one, the square root of 120 can be divided by 4, right? So 120 is 4 times 30. So the square root of 4 is 2. And then 2 goes into 12, 2 and 12 on that one skips. So that one just can be reduced by 2. I hope that makes sense. E, I don't know what happened there. Sorry. X equals plus or minus 6. Oops, sorry. That should be root 6. Root 6 divided by 4. And then the last one, I stopped early and then Elizabeth put in her answer. I was like, oh, it can be divided by something other than 3. So X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 37 divided by 6. Because I just looked at 333 and thought, oh, I can only divide by 3. No, you can divide by something else. 9. 9 goes into 333. So I simplified it further. Is there any questions on any of those? Do I need to do any of them? Are we okay? Awesome. So we have 3 more problems. 3 more problems. There we go. So here we go with the last 3, you guys. Again, the same way, if you need me to go over them, because your answer was not correct, let me know and I'll go over that particular problem. So X for G is going to equal negative 3 plus or minus I root 3 divided by 6. Okay. H is going to be negative 1 plus or minus I root 55 divided by 7. And I is going to be, X is going to equal 2 plus or minus I root 14, divided by 9. So any questions? Okay, so good job today.